Hello, global educators. This is Steve Hargadon. I'm co-chair of the Global Education Conference, and this is the 7th annual Global Education Conference. We're so delighted you're here. We're in the last day. I'm thinking this is the antepenultimate keynote. Did I get that right? Anyway, it's close to the end. Very close. And we're really excited to have Dmitry Savelau here. Dmitry, welcome.
Thank you. Was there more?
Oh, don't start yet.
Okay.
Thanks so much to our sponsors and supporters, VIF International, Google for Education, TES, iEARN USA. You can see on the website the variety of organizations that have sponsored or supported this event and helped to make it free and to publicize it. We deeply appreciate their participation. This is an opportunity for those of you participating live to indicate where you're located somewhere in the world. Look to the left of the map. You're looking for the star icon, the second one down. You'll double click on that and then you'll click on the map. Feel free to put a shout out in the chat as well. Let us know where you are, time, temperature, anything else you think is interesting. We talked to India this morning, and I'd been reading the news about the change in their currency, and there's just so much interesting international news, so feel free to share anything that's going on in your part of the world. The earthquake in New Zealand, Yemen, Mohammed, thank you for being here. Maisie from Israel, Romania. I think that's Guam, of course. Govinda in Nepal. Anyway, truly delighted to have each of you here. I'm going to now turn the time over to Dmitry. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dmitry.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Can you all hear me well? Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So my name is Dmitry Savelau, and I'm from change.org. I'm a campaigns director for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, and also a country director for Russia. And at heart, I'm an iEARNer. I grew up being in iEARN, and I remember I joined iEARN. Well, I was joined to iEARN when I was probably 12. And so, yeah, these issues and connecting people and educating people and learning with the world is something that is very, very passionate, something that I'm passionate about. And so being here at change.org right now and share with you some of the things that we've learned since we've launched the platform, I'm really excited basically to do that here. It's the last day of the conference, and you probably heard already a lot of fantastic initiatives you know, that help your students create positive, long-lasting change in your students' lives. And also for you to help elevate their educational experience, making it global and making it, you know, connected to the real world. As iEARN says, you know, that's something that I've been, you know, always remember since I was a student. Learning with the world, not just about it. I think it says it all, because it's a fantastic description of the demands and the standards that define effective education today. And you know, what makes it effective, successful, and useful is its direct relation to the needs and the urgency and of the reality of today. And its ability, education gives our students ability to react to this fast-changing reality and life outside the classroom, and you know, respond to all this crisis. So when I was working with iEARN, I have discovered many awesome school projects that helped me do just that. learn with the world and not just about it. I'm somewhere here in the crowd. And these projects help me as a student and help students now today to expand their horizons, learn with the world, learn interconnect the classrooms so that they can actually touch the reality outside their classroom and not wait until they graduate. This is something you will very well know. That's why you all here. And what I've noticed already then when I was participating in iEARN projects is that indirectly, really, sometimes or more often indirectly, we were already able to impact the life of the community that we were in. And I've always wondered, if we could do more than just touch the surface of that. My next adventure was in joining Adobe Youth Voices program. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this initiative. It was a project of the Adobe Foundation, and the idea was that we could, as educators, empower young people to talk about positive change and talk about their stories by producing youth media, and have obviously been and this way an effect on the local communities young people are in. The project has finished to my knowledge by now, but they have lots of fantastic educational resources for educators that would love to elevate and would love to work with this notion of youth media and creative confidence of students, and actually try to use personal stories that students tell to impact the life in the communities. But again, when we were doing that, the focus was on creativity and building that creative confidence. But then still, there was something missing. There was the action, the active part, where young people actually engage in from the beginning till the end and drive their passion from an idea towards concrete action and concrete social change. That part I thought was missing there. And then I started looking to see where I would find an answer. Where are those tools that help young people and people in general to effectively create positive change? So, what I want to talk about here is basically try to find an answer. What if students could take one step further than just connecting between classrooms and start, one step further into the community and start, and get the power to transform the issue they care about into positive change. I really believe that students today have immense possibilities, not just to learn with the world, but to actually have immediate huge impact on the world and their local communities. So that's why I wanted to talk to you today about change.org. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the platform or signed the petitions. We're quite massive at this point. Well, change.org, just to give you the context, change.org is the world's largest petition platform, which allows anyone, anywhere to create change they want to see in the world. It allows you to easily create a petition, find supporters, easily communicate with them and with decision makers that are responsible for the issue that you want to change. As you see maybe there in the slide, currently over 170 million users use the platform to make a difference on a daily basis. And according to our data, on average, one campaign an hour becomes a victory, which means it achieves the social change we wanted to achieve. Here's a fantastic example. This is Lucy. She's 14-year-old and she lives in Sheffield in the UK. She started her petition on change.org earlier this year, and she asked Tesco, one of the largest supermarket chains you probably know, to stop selling eggs from caged hens. This is a quite interesting and specific ask that Lucy had. And the reason is it wasn't not random to her. It was, looking after hens is her passion, because she has 5 hens herself at home. She loves them and she wants to do everything so the hens have a better living conditions and don't live in commercial cages. So she started her petition. I mean, this is an incredible example of how one young lady decided to stand up for a cause that is very dear to her heart, and quickly mobilized her classroom and friends to get first 100 of signatures. And in just a month, over 280,000 people all over the UK have joined Lucy's petition and helped her connect to the media. This is Lucy talking to BBC Breakfast Show. And then finally to reach out to Tesco administration as well. In just a few weeks, Tesco responded, promising to stop selling caged hens eggs in the supermarkets in the UK. This is, was this experience educational for Lucy and all of her classmates? Undoubtedly. I think it was not only educational for her, but it was an incredible educational experience for Lucy's teachers, for her parents, for neighbors, and finally for 280,000 people who joined her campaign and learned from it and now believe they can too make a difference. So when I was a teenage leader going to all these educational events, you know, and oftentimes in the inspirational speeches, I would hear that we are the leaders of tomorrow. There was always something discouraging about this statement for me. And now I realize that seeing this young people potential, ability, willingness, and motivation to act and find creative ways to influence decisions, define them as leaders of today and not tomorrow. And a platform like change.org, I believe, can help them do that better and more effectively already today. So this is where change.org comes in, and it's very helpful, can be very helpful to you and your students willing to take just one step more into their community. Not, as I was saying, not just to learn about, but trying to transform their community into a better, happier, and just place. When we talk about change.org, we believe, and we at change.org believe in four things. Firstly, we believe that tools like the ones we provide should be free and easy to use by everyone. And then it's also, that's why I want to emphasize here that it's available to you and your students to be used as well. Secondly, we believe that there are more people in this world that want positive change than those who don't. And that's why, in Lucy's case, it was so easy for her to mobilize 280,000 people. And there are numerous examples of campaigns that became victories that get, you know, thousands and thousands of supporters. Related to that, thirdly, we believe that behind every signature or like on Facebook or, you know, on Twitter, follow on Twitter, we tend to forget that behind these names and signatures, there are real people who oftentimes want to do more than just sign or like the page. They actually want to help, and this is your greatest resource when you work with, you know, publicly like this. When you try to mobilize people, you want to work outside of the classroom with people to actually achieve, create social change. And finally, we believe that a single person with his or her personal story is the most powerful driver of social change today. So, you know, you as educators are in a fantastic position to elevate these experiences much more, you know, make them much more systemic and turn them into this effective, amazing, and exciting learning journeys. So looking at stories like Lucy's, there are generally 5 key skill sets that I think we could identify in those skills that help you and your students, to run effective social change campaigns. In other words, these are 5 things we believe will help you as educators to help your students successfully advance anything, any cause your students are passionate about and make a concrete impact. First is learning the power of storytelling. As I mentioned before, we believe personal stories are the driver of any change in any community. There's so many examples within Change.org or outside of Change.org. You probably know them. When people much more passionately unite around personal stories than case studies or statistics. I mean, you obviously use it in your classrooms. And you see the reaction when you talk about statistics or when you talk about exciting, adventurous stories. And that's why sharing a personal story and making a social change a personal journey for students is so important, because it's much more effective. This is exactly, for example, what Julia did when she started her petition on Change.org. Julia is a 13-year-old. She was 13-year-old. It's quite an old campaign, but it's one of my favorites. So when she started this petition, she was 13-year-old a couple of years ago. And she's actively involved in ballet classes. But she felt, because she's in that environment, she felt pressured to be skinny, because there's a very different and strict definition of what makes girls pretty. In her petition, Julia wrote, "I'm in a ballet class with a bunch of high school girls, and on a daily basis I hear comments like, 'It's a fat day,' or 'I ate well today but I still feel fat.' It's not just ballet dancers who feel the pressure to be pretty. It's everybody. To girls today, the word pretty means skinny and blemish-free. Why is that, when so few girls actually fit into such a narrow category?" So that's why in her petition, she turned to 17 magazines, the magazines that she loves and she reads monthly. And for those of you maybe not aware, 17 magazines is a magazine for 17-year-old girls. She asked the magazine to do one simple thing. She only asked for one spread in one issue to be free of Photoshop. So she wanted a magazine to portray the girls as they are, real bodies, without being photoshopped and turned into idealized versions. So Julia started off by calling her best friends to help her with this campaign. And in just a few weeks, she forced the editor of the magazine to publish an official pledge signed by the people that work in the magazine, promising their readers not to Photoshop or edit bodies of their teen models anymore, as well as to listen more to the needs and requests of their young readers. And that was the big celebration that Julia had in this campaign. If we talk, so this is the first, basically. This is just to illustrate for you how personal stories can drive change. This is a deeply personal experience for Julia, and you can see it everywhere. I mean, the whole education process now is built around personal stories. But in campaigning, it's just something that, by looking at 170 million users on the platform, we could see how much more motivated they are when they see any issue that is, that is communicated to them through a personal story, how much more easily and passionately connect to it. Second group of skills, I guess you could say, that we found important is ability of students to communicate effectively with everybody. And here I mean with any type of person with any type of interest. I mean, generally communication skills and learning how to come to an agreement are obviously things that we all learn at school, and you are probably doing a fantastic job at teaching your students. But motivation to learning these skills often remains quite general. When your students run on their campaign, very concrete, and they need to achieve the desired result, their abilities to communicate with stakeholders, with each other, with partners, with decision makers become a necessity. And this is when the real practice happens. So at Change.org, we always say that starting a petition is the very first and easiest step, but then the real work starts after that. And the success of a campaign like that, a social change campaign today, depends on how effectively you communicate with your friends, partners, supporters, followers, your neighborhood, and so on. And what kind of action you and your classmates and everyone who supports you at that point can organize to get where you need to be. So importantly, identifying who are your partners in this process and how you communicate to each of these groups, because you often have to communicate quite differently to get to where you want to be. Or, deliver messages in a little different way so that people understand. And it kind of links back to the point of personal storytelling. So in other words, how you communicate with media, non-profit organizations can help you students address the issues they're passionate about, and other partners you may need along the way. So only by coordinating actions like this, these students from Kazan in Russia were able to save their school from closure. And this campaign was led by 16-year-old Nikita, who for 6 months, he and his students, his classmates, were fighting to save their school. And their school was, the governor of the region was trying to shut the school down because of the lack of low numbers of students in classes. But the school, this was something they really loved, and they committed to trying to save it. It took them 6 months, and only by engaging with their 80,000 supporters effectively online, they were able to mobilize media, organize street actions, and finally meet with the educational departments in their region, demanding to save their school. And believe me, it's a hell of a work to do in Russia, so I'm super impressed by these kids. And I was really happy to see when they declared victory on their petition. A third group of skills that we believe is important is ability to understand and be part of decision-making processes. So when Lucy tried to get Tesco to react, Tesco did not listen for quite a while. When Julia was trying to get attention of the 17 magazine, the magazine did not respond right away. And if you remember, as I was telling you these stories, I was kind of going, they started a petition, they mobilized signatures, they collected signatures, and then someone responded. But there's this big gap in between of these actually lots of different actions. And the point of all of these actions was precisely to put these young people in the middle of decision-making process. So their voices are heard, and they're able to participate in decision and share their position and have one strong, united voice. So this is what, coming back to example with Julia and the 17 magazine, this is what Julia did when she tried to reach out to the magazine a few times, and the magazine did not react. So she organized the petition delivery, invited journalists to come along to record it, invited her best friends, as you can see in the picture, the ones that she initially engaged in the campaign, and asked them to help get attention of the magazine. And what she did, as I was mentioning, she precisely put herself and her friends in the middle of this decision-making process. So being part of decision-making is not easy, and there's always many ways you can help your students to get involved. Clearly, these are also very crucial skills. These are crucial life skills, but also there's a crucial, for us as campaigners, professional campaigners to change the world, these are crucial campaigning skills. Researching and understanding how decision-making around a concrete issue works, how your students can engage with a decision maker, who decision makers actually are, and how their voices can be heard in decision-making process. This is honestly normally quite a pure trial and error process, I have to say, but that's precisely what makes it so exciting, and I believe it would also be very exciting for the students. But it definitely makes it an exciting and excellent educational experience, because what you have at the end, you have a young person ready to take decisions, share responsibility and ownership of the decisions taken, and ready to defend his or her point of view in the conversation where important decisions are made. I think the key word for me from this talk about decision-making process is ownership. What we've noticed from these campaigns is how strongly young people hold on to these initiatives, because first of all, like Lucy, with hands, because this is something that she grew up with, and this is something that's extremely passionate to her, that she's passionate about. And so this ownership of this idea and the campaign leads these young people to actually direct, makes them effective in actually directly making positive change happen. So bringing their campaign from the start to the very end. The next group of things, which I think is also super important, is ability to reflect and learn and grow from failures and victories. And this is a truly two sides of the same coin. What we found from numerous successful campaigns on change.org is that a major motivation factor for people to go on and help you again and again is when they know that their actions have some effect. And it doesn't have to be an immediate victory. It could be a little step. It could be a press article somewhere popped up about their campaign, something that shows them their actions have effect. And you know it so well within your classrooms because that's exactly how you make students excited about learning, by celebrating little steps that they make along the way. But now imagine that this is the crucial thing, what we see when we talk about 170 million users, adult users, young users on our platform, exactly the same thing. When we see petition starters able to give that a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of celebration of every little small step that they made along the way in their social change campaign, the response is just huge. People want to come back and do more and help you win even bigger. So the same, So I mean, this is definitely not news to you, but we could see that in this 170 million users, and it's just incredible to watch. So the same goes for failures, and I think it's crucial that you work with students on reflecting on each of their steps and seeing why they failed and what could be done better. I'll give you an example. This amazing campaign in the UK. There's a petition was started by the Oasis Academy Hadley in the UK, where a whole class was a petition starter. And their ask was not to deport one of their classmates from the UK to Mauritius. And Yoshika is one of the girls on the right, the girls on the photo. When she's an outstanding student, but when she turned 18, the immigration authorities decided to remove her from the country and deport her back to Mauritius. And her classmates stood up in her defense. They mobilized over 180,000 people to join their petitions. They went on numerous street protests demanding the Prime Minister to let Yoshika stay. But unfortunately, they did not win, and Yoshika was deported. Still, what they managed to achieve, they managed to convince the government to let Yoshika graduate before she left the country. So Yoshika was able actually to complete her education. So this is such a tricky example because what this class really wanted didn't happen. But there was an incredible learning experience, both for Yoshika and everybody who participated, the whole school that was involved. And as I was saying earlier, not only the school, but the neighborhood, parents, educators, and 180,000 people would join their campaign. And this led to a lot more petitions like this. And I believe in the future, I bet some of these people will become advocates in helping immigrants and refugees to have a better life conditions. And, probably be advocates for their rights. So there's definitely a sign of a long-lasting change happening beyond just Yoshika stories. And this is, I think, is truly amazing to see. And lastly, the last group of skills that we believe is important is an ability to understand, know, and learn how to use technology and be open to new technology that unlocks more and more power of collective action. We all use technology, but obviously we connect now through technology, and the whole conference is about using technology as well. But when you try to understand how to unlock, when you're trying to understand how to use technology just beyond communicating, between classrooms and connecting to the community, or actually trying to understand how to use the potential of collective action that is out there, and how to connect it to the classroom, and how you make your students kind of communicate with this and be able to deliver effectively solutions to issues that they care about. This is when it gets tricky. I'll be honest that we think that we're at the very, very beginning of what is possible. We are Change.org, more the guys that are looking at what our users are doing. For example, from just these stories that I told you about, we've learned so much of the use of the petition starters, of these kids' behavior through the actions and the ideas and the creativity that they have. We try to learn with them what actions they've done, how they use the platform to win. So in all of that, no secret that our students are generally much more advanced in technology, so let your students help you lead on this and be creative with it. Snapchat, for example, is something that I personally refuse to understand, but it seems to be something that a lot of young people are using to, a part of just leaving stupid messages. They're using that as well to advance and get out their calls for action. So it's just a sign that if you as educators create good conditions now for the kids to grow and understand the power of impact they can make, and hopefully in the near future their creativity and the tech solutions will bring positive social change at an even larger scale, the scale that we cannot yet understand, I think. So just like you saw in all of these examples, what I was trying to tell you, the Change.org is an online tool that helps you and your students to effectively mobilize thousands of people beyond your classroom and globalize their calls for action. So be open to petitions. Don't think of it as a document, but think of it as an online tool that helps you communicate, for your students to communicate with the supporters, with the partners, with nonprofits, with journalists, and finally, of course, with decision makers. So Change.org is an excellent tool for that. As an example, I want to show you what Malala did on Change.org. When she started her global campaign supporting education for girls around the world. I encourage you to go check on that page. I didn't put the URL in the presentation, but I'll drop it in the text, in the message, in the backboard. But if you check your page, you'll see 30 fantastic campaigns around the world led by young girls that are just like Malala, trying to improve access to education for all. This is a whole new level of how you could use the platform, how you can lead. And we expect these girls, when I was talking to you about earlier, to become these organizers. So this is one step higher of what you can do already with technology that is around you, inspire and mobilize people to be these change makers just around the globe. And your students can easily join Malala's movement on Change.org by starting their petition and working directly with Malala to addressing this cause. So I guess the final points on what I was trying to summarize what I was trying to say, something that struck me as I was preparing for this presentation was when we talk about 21st century skills and the skills that people need to be able to be competitive, be able to have a good quality of life, and able to realize their talents and all of that. This is essentially the skills that are also required from professional campaigners today. And that's when it hit me that I think campaigners' skills are 21st century skills, and 21st century skills are campaigners' skills. So we are essentially all campaigners. And if we are good in understanding how we communicate, what decision-making processes are, if we're able to share and drive change through personal stories, we're able to learn from our failures, I think our students are going to be fantastic change makers of today, already today, which is important, not tomorrow. So if you would like to learn more, these are just quite general ideas that I wanted to share with you, but if you'd like to learn more about concrete things that you can do using the platforms like Change.org, and just to make a note, these are, the guide that we have there is obviously related to Change.org and the petitions, but if you just look at it as an idea, how you can communicate with how your students can communicate with with each other, with their partners, with their supporters, with people that like their Facebook pages and stuff like that, then you could easily apply these principles outside of Change.org as well. And so, just put it on the scale. I think what we're talking here is a whole new scale to reach that your classroom activities can have. And what looks like Change.org allow you to do is to step out a little bit from the inner classroom global collaboration and start collaborating directly with stakeholders and decision makers around the world for the sake of actually creating social change in their lives, and for your students to taste what democracy, advocacy, active life position, global citizenship really look like in practice. Thank you very much. I try to make it short so we have more time to actually talk, have questions.
Hi,
so feel free.
it's Lucy. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your work with us today. We really appreciate it. And if anybody has a question, stick it in the chat, or I can give you the microphone if you raise your hand, and you can actually speak with us. But I do have one question to start out with, or I have several questions actually, and I'm overly tired right now, so hopefully this comes through clearly. But I think one of the things that the teachers in the room are responding to, and Tony Barnon brought this out, is that you were, as a student, you were active globally through iEARN and Adobe Youth Voices and that sort of thing, and now you're doing something very similar as an adult. And if you can elaborate on that, what was the most impactful experience in your youth that made you know that you wanted to go in this direction professionally? I think it's really kind of cool and neat, and maybe, I don't know, I don't think I've been in this long enough to see the fruition, the results of our work impacting young people into adulthood. Obviously iEARN has, but anyway, I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning real briefly, I started with iEARN when I was maybe 11. Participating in different projects. And I think for me then, learning English and trying to communicate with everybody around the world was so exciting. I don't think there was like one point that I could point out and say, this was a turning point when I thought I would love to continue doing it. But there was something that really kind of resonated with me personally, was that I've been learning so much through a lot of initiatives, and iEARN, and iEARN was obviously the major driver with all these different projects, scientific projects, creative projects, and collaborating with all these people. But one I've always wanted to do is to try and see, all right, how can I use now this knowledge and actually do something to advance something that I'm passionate about. And this is when I was always kind of hitting the wall, which is kind of, I guess, weird to say, because you are in the most friendliest environment, of teachers and students that are sharing and being creative and, trying to learn from each other. But the whole idea of you guys have to grow up and then you can make a difference always kind of left me very discouraged. And that's when I started looking for more opportunities to see, all right, Adobe Youth Voices came in, also being part of iEARN. That's how I joined, and then, quickly became the global media mentor for the program. And that idea was so appealing to me because I thought, all right, maybe the personal stories that young people share, you see them, you share them, you work with the audience, and sort of all of a sudden you're aware and you try and you do things very differently. But that would be sort of this inspirational part, and then the action would rarely kind of go. I mean, it would happen, but the focus was on inspirational and awareness building. And so my idea was kind of continuously trying to dig and trying to find what are the tools young people have, and we all have, to be able to effectively organize. And that's how I came to change.org. And when I joined Change.org, it was a very small organization because I joined over 5 years ago now, and you know, we were not global. And I was quite honestly, you know, thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do with this petitions? And when I started talking with the team, we realized the idea is quite, you know, much more advanced than what the technology was, and we're trying to catch up to it. And the idea is precisely that there's so many tools, including petitions, that can help you and your students right now, just like I was when I was, you know, 15, let's say 16, 13, to actually use all of that motivation and knowledge and apply it to the things that kids are really, really passionate about. It, something that they really want to change. And it could be a small thing, but you can see Lucy's love for chickens led her to, you know, turn it over an incredible chain of you know, events, and like having the Tesco, which is the largest supermarket, to committing to stop selling eggs that are not that comes from you know, caged hens. And there's so many stories. Or Gatorade story in the U.S. Student educators probably know about it. There's a young 15-year-old when she decided to when she saw on the pack of Gatorade this awful chemical drink, to be honest, but she found this especially bad chemical and then forced Gatorade producers to remove it. I mean, all of this, the stories, and we have incredible campaigns when young girls targeted here in the UK, the education minister, and asked them to talk to each school about female genital mutilation because students were simply unaware, and this practice exists here as well in the UK. So, I mean, it's when you see stories like this, I feel, oh my God, I wish it was happening then when I was there. And I guess that's sort of a kind of a, you know, I always felt I was making these choices subconsciously, but the reality is I think I was going towards a particular point, which is trying to impact right away the world as you see, trying to shape it as you want, no matter how old you are. And so students are in the perfect age to do that.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think, you know, given what's gone on in the UK in the last year and what's going on in the U.S. right now, that we, I think this is even more important, and the urgency to get the word out about organizations that are growing young global change makers is really, really important. And to teach kids in a real context about taking action and how you organize around it, like you've been discussing, is really, really, really important. I'm wondering, have you seen an uptick at change.org since Brexit, since our election here in the U.S., in terms of people joining or more petitions, or, I mean, do you anticipate more civil action through petitioning and that sort of thing as a result of what's going on?
Oh, absolutely, and always. And I'll tell you more. These are huge events that you're talking about, Brexit and the elections. These are huge events. Obviously, these events, that both of them, that impact not only life of people within the countries where they happen, but the whole world. And so my strong belief that since the consequences are global, then the actions should be global too. You know, my first reaction when I was looking at what happened, I was thinking, have I done enough to defend my point of view? You know, because I'll be affected by the things, you know, Brexit and the elections in the U.S. And so our users are obviously thinking the same way, and it's quite interesting to see because we are a neutral platform. We're a neutral tech platform. You could see the whole diversity of opinions that pop up. And it's quite interesting to see how people organize around different points of view on the same event and trying to advance what they believe is the right solution. But regarding the elections in the U.S., I have to tell you, yeah, we've seen a huge jump. And actually, I think it's probably the most popular petition. It's probably the most, in terms of amount of signatures, I think it's the biggest petition that we ever had on the site. Is happening right now in relation to Electoral College and Clinton. And then the petition is asking for Electoral College to vote for Clinton. And I think at this point it has 4.5 million signatures or something like that. So it's it's an incredible, just think of that, it's an incredible movement, 4.5 million people. Now the question is, all of the things that I was kind of sharing earlier, we hope that the author of the petition starter, would work with these people, because this is potentially the beginning of an incredible big movement of people that could do things locally. These are probably people from around the world as well. And this is a truly global movement that can grow from this one petition, which I believe the petition starter probably spent like 10 minutes creating this petition, but it just went and it exploded. And there's so many examples like that. Brexit was the same thing. There were a bunch of different solutions that people put forward of how they see exit from this situation and what they want the politicians to do, what they want their local government to do. So yeah, we always see big or small, and it could be sports events, it could be Olympics, it could be anything. And it's just incredible to see how, on one hand, these are tools for people to resolve these issues, and on the other hand, it's an incredible indicator of public opinion.
I think there's a lawnmower running in the house next door to me, so if you hear a lot of background noise, I apologize. But I guess my next question is related to, I think it's so interesting that one electoral college petition has like 5 million signatures. I mean, it's easy for people to do. It's spread virally through social media. There's a lot of factors into that makes people feel passionately enough to act on it a little bit. It's not like changing the world to sign a petition, but it's at least committing to do, to putting your name to it. I think that whole idea of metrics behind all these organizations and what we're doing is interesting. Like, we struggle every year to get, I don't know what our metrics are in terms of people viewing our stuff, but we think we're doing like awesome things, and it seems, I don't know, it's hard to get those kinds of numbers. And then in this YouTube world, we were talking to somebody from the Crash Course channel yesterday, where they get like millions of views every day. It's mind-boggling, these numbers that go into these organizations, and I'm just kind of curious about what makes something go viral. What has made, and in the context of change.org, what have been the things that have made more petitions more successful than others? I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. That's something that we always trying to track and understand and learn from. And I'll tell you, actually, the things that I mentioned here in this presentation are precisely the things that separate petitions that become successful from those that are not. And so the timing is definitely important. So as you see this one with Clinton and the Electoral College, it's definitely the timing that made it viral, because people were looking for solutions. They're trying to find emotionally these connections and understand what's next. And so this came as a solution. But in most cases, if you look at all of this, like systemically, at all the successful campaigns, we tend to see a very strong personal story, because it helps quicker people to understand what the issue is about. They might not care about how many refugees, or something, but they will care about this one family. I'll give you an example. In Russia, we had this campaign. In Russia, there are tons of issues with refugees, but Russia hasn't been taking any refugees. And it's a quite difficult story to convey in Russia because of a naturally a little bit hostile and kind of, it's not something that people really used to talk about. So it's quite difficult to to mobilize people and say, look, these are real issues, and the Syrian refugees are real issues and stuff like that. And so there was a family that got stuck in Moscow airport for 2 months, and they were placed, a family, there were 4 kids, a mother and a father, and they tried to escape from Syria, and they flew into Moscow. And they were stuck there in a glass box of a smoking room, formerly smoking room, and the authorities did not let them in. And the petition got maybe 90,000 signatures or something like that. And when we tried to get that, when the petition started, was trying to tell the story of this family, of this situation, the petition started to quickly realize that statistics and the numbers, these are millions of refugees flooding, these are the issues, this is the the economy, this is the money that you could, it's not going to work. What worked was the story of a 13-year-old Renat, who's the kid, and how he envisions his future and what situation he is in. And these stories are powerful, and you could see how people started to unite around it, because they looked at it and they thought, what if I'm going to be this? What if it's going to be my son? And so we always see, first of all, the personal stories help get people together. And these kids' stories, I mean, this is just incredible. And there's so many of these examples. I really picked just a few to show you, but there's so many. When you just see that, kids, the way kids view the world, the way they explain the world, it's just impossible that you would not support them. And the purity and desire and motivation of them to change something for good, to make it better, is so strong. And it just applies equally to everybody else. And then the other thing that I think makes it, well, one of the things that makes it, like successful campaigns like this, or popular campaigns, is communication, constant communication with supporters. And you rightly said, Change.org is tuned on sharing. Because you were saying also, that it's easy to start a petition, and we try to make it as easy as possible. And quite often we get criticism because people say, we kind of replaced activism by virtual activism. But I don't think it's true. First of all, it's effective, it looks like, judging by the one campaign an hour winning. But secondly, if it's easy for people to do something, just even from their phone, or being, walking home from work, and just make a difference, try to be part of a movement that they believe in is important. That's excellent. That's amazing. And so in this sense, communicating with these people and building on that is really important. So if you look at these campaigns, you see that regularly, once a week or more, petition starters would send something, would send a date, would celebrate little things, would tell the news, would organize actions, would ask people to repost, retweet, to write letters collectively to the senator or the governor, to for example, find contacts among the media to help them deliver the message. Many, many things you could do. And I guess that's maybe, and one other thing is simplicity. The more simple we communicate the message, the better. People don't have much time to read and go deeper into the complex issues. So that's why stories help. But also the language. We always say that people generally have 5 seconds to decide whether they want to support you or not. And it's quite a kind of complicated thing to kind of, sort of not to understand, but accept when you have so much to say, that people normally scroll down and go for a second. But it applies equally to anything that you share on social media, or anything that you publish in a sort of news kind of format, right? Not sort of a deep research or maybe educational materials that you're working with. But I'm talking about something shareable, sociable, something like that. Yeah, count on 5 seconds. That's my honest opinion. People are scrolling down, checking. That's why, for example, social media is so full of videos right now, because it's something that gets attention, and it holds you a little bit longer than 5 seconds.
All right, this has been amazing. I love your stories. I love your advice here. I think that everybody, whether you're working for an organization or working with students, can take something and apply it today based on your advice. Here's my last question for you. We've only got like 5 minutes left, and so if you could quickly tell us, what can our community do to support your work? What do you want to see from educators and from other nonprofits related to your work? How can we help, get the word out more or support you in any way?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing is the tools are out there, but there's a really big educational gap in terms of how to use it. And I'm not talking just about Change.org, but any other tools that help young people to create positive change. That's why we try to launch a crowd campaigning initiative. We try to launch different educational initiatives, but they're in the very early stage. That's why I didn't even mention them. We try to see what kind of educational resources could be out there for people to be better at delivering their thoughts, working with decision makers. And in this sense, I would love to get anything, any ideas that you I have, or anything that you might be working on, something that we could feature or we could use, or something that we could provide to our users, or to even just, you know, these young students that we have on the platform already. You know, for example, things like we wanted to have a startup, but we're planning to ask all these amazing campaign, like, you know, petition starters that I was mentioning, to share their experiences and give us tips. So creating these educational resources and working with your students around, you know, these are the possibilities that happen. These are the things. These are the steps that you can do in order to you know, change something that you think is not right. That would be amazing. Again, we're just a platform and we're just a tool, but we're only as effective as people that use it. And so in this sense, there's just so much work to do. And quite honestly, because my focus is Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and I have to tell you, it's been incredibly difficult to kind of, when you work with educators there, to kind of deliver that. It's a very different way of thinking, and for countries in the former Soviet republics, it's also quite a different mentality, as, you know, first of all, letting students create a difference, and second of all, understanding that the solutions are actually in your hands, and it's not anybody else that is going to come do it for you. And I think this is a quite big cultural change that should start from school, understanding that you are decision-making of a situation. If you're not, this is the ways that you can be part of the decision-making process. And I think this is super important for global citizens, for young citizens, for active citizens, a very important skill to be learning. And this is an excellent way to start doing it. So if there is any, if there are fantastic educational resources or tips and guides that you guys have from working in classrooms, and generally, please feel free to use the tool. Let me know if you watch of the initiatives that you're thinking about, and we'll be more than happy to support, find ways to support you in your classrooms. For example, by emailing our users on the initiatives that you're working on, and especially user petitions, helping you find supporters that you need.
So now everybody has their own personal contact here at change.org through you. So everyone, you have his Twitter handle here. Maybe you can put also, Dmitry, if you want to put it in your email in the chat too, people can reach out to you. And I want to, before we wrap up, I want to extend an invitation to you. If there's anything that is ever coming up that you want us to know about, you know, we have a discussion forum in our community, and I encourage, I don't post stuff there individually for people because I want people to own it. But if you have something going on, put something in the discussion forum, and then I'll get it out over social media and that sort of thing, and help you spread the word. So we're here to support you, and I know that our community is going to be taking advantage of your tools and resources on your website. So thank you so much for coming. And I think we need to end with, Cornelia, I don't know Cornelia. I don't know if she's a teacher or if she works for iEARN, but Cornelia Platten is saying in the comments, I don't know if you can see this, you've always been great, Dmitry. Congratulations for your work, which really makes a difference. And so on that note, I think we're going to say goodbye so that people can get to the next session. And thank you for your work, and keep it up, and we'll be following you, Dmitry.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I left my email in the chat, so you feel free, please contact me. I'll be happy to answer all your other questions. Thank you, friends.